have amongst us Honorable External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar. He is accompanied by His Excellency Ambassador of India to the Russian Federation, Mr. Pawan Kapoor. Kindly give them a very warm welcome. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and members of the Indian community. I once again warmly welcome each one of you on behalf of the Embassy of India. Honorable Minister, we are extremely delighted to have you amongst us today. May I now invite on stage Natya Rekha Studio of Nritya Sabha Foundation to perform the composition in Bharatnatyam style dedicated to one of the most revered deities of India, Ganesha. It is choreographed by Mr. Dimitri Zameev, an ICCR alumni who is a disciple of Leela Samson.
Mara takadimi takajonu takadimi takajonu takkardaga targidatom takkardaga targidatom takadimi takajonu takkardaga targidatom takadimi takajonu takkardaga targidatom takkardaga targidatom takkardaga targidatom 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 takkardaga targidatom ta takkardaga targidatom tei takkardaga targidatom takkardaga targidatom ta takkardaga targidatom tei takkardaga targidatom takkardaga targidatom ta takkardaga targidatom tei takkardaga targidatom tam.
Thank you for that beautiful and energetic performance. Can we have a huge round of applause for the artist, please? Honorable Minister, we are extremely grateful to have you amongst us today. It is my privilege to invite His Excellency Mr. Pavan Kapoor to welcome the Honorable Minister to this community gathering. Kindly, sir, please come on the stage.
Honorable External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, colleagues, dear friends, Glemenia Balshaya Chest, Privestovich Vas Mascow. It is a great honor and privilege for me to welcome our External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, to Moscow. He is, of course, no stranger to the city, having started his career as a diplomat in Moscow in the late 1970s, and then having visited the city several times in different capacities. I personally recall his visit to Moscow in 1993 when I was a junior officer in the embassy, and he was a director in our ministry dealing with the region. I have since had the pleasure and privilege of working under his guidance and learning from him over several years, both during his time as Foreign Secretary and, of course, during the last 4+ years as Minister of External Affairs. Most of you would be aware about Dr. Jaishankar's key role in formulating and implementing the foreign policy of India under Honorable Prime Minister Modi. Many of you would also be aware of his amazing ability to firmly, yet politely, articulate India's position on world affairs based on our national interest. Video clips of some of his public interviews have not only gone viral on social media, but have been much appreciated all over the world, not just by the Indian community, but also by domain experts and ambassadors from different countries across. Dr. Jaishankar's 2020 book, The India Way, Strategies for an Uncertain World, has also been read and acclaimed by several foreign ministers, leaders, and global statesmen. And I can share a secret with you that his new book, Why Bharat Matters, is all set to be released very soon. It is therefore a matter of great pride for me to welcome the Honorable Minister to Moscow. I'm delighted, sir, that you have found time to address a small cross-section of our diaspora here. And I can also tell the distinguished audience here that the Honorable Minister has kindly consented to respond to a few questions also after his address. With these words, sir, may I request you to please address our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ambassador Pavan Kapoor, dear friends, Namaskar, Dobre Večer, good evening. It's very good to see you all, and it's very good to be back in Moscow. Now, what I often do, in fact, I try invariably to do when I travel out, is to meet representatives of our community, share with them how our relationship is doing, sometimes also what is it which has brought me to that country, and if you'll permit me, I would like to do the same today. When we think about the relationship with India and Russia, it is in many ways actually an exceptional relations. Exceptional not just for the two countries, but actually I would say, in world politics. And why is that? If one looks at the last 60, 70, 80 years of politics, among the major countries of the world, they have had their relationships, but almost all these relationships have their ups and downs. So if you look at Russia and China, Russia and USA, Russia and Europe, India and China, India and USA, you will actually see over a period of time, there are good periods, there are sometimes not so good periods, there are difficulties, there are stresses, and there are very, very also good memories and great achievements. To me, what is actually exceptional about India-Russia relations is, from the early 50s, it actually for 70, 80 odd years, and there have been big changes in this period. This was a period when actually the Soviet Union became Russian Federation, among other countries. When actually big changes have happened in world politics, when Russia has actually transformed, India has grown. And yet, if there is one constant actually in world politics, it has actually been the relationship with India-Russia. So everywhere else, actually, you get the question when you look at any relationship, why has this relationship changed? I think we are the only two countries which have to answer, why has this relationship not changed? And I can think of many reasons. One, of course, that if you look at the map of the world, if you look at the continental mass, it is natural as two big countries of the central landmass in the world, India and Russia, have many things which bring them together. But I would say a second reason has been that perhaps more than many other countries, and we have to give tribute to all those who had that vision and that judgment, there was great care taken by the leaderships, by the governments, by stakeholders of different times to actually nurture, to look after this relationship. Ambassador referred to the early 90s. Now, I don't know, I'm curious, how many of you have been I'm not asking the Russians, how many Indians or people of Indian origin have lived here for more than 30 years? Okay. No, it's a good sample, okay? Now, those who have lived more than 30 years would remember, what some of the challenges of the early 90s, okay? But think back on that period. Even then, the relationship was very steady. Even then, somewhere there was that belief that the two countries would care for each other, would look after each other, would make that extra effort. So I would make the point that this is today a relationship of exceptional steadiness and consistency, It is a relationship which has held firm despite all the turbulence in world politics over the last 40, 50 years. It is a relationship where the leaderships and the governments have made a great effort. But I want to make especially this point, it is a relationship with great sentiment and where all the stakeholders of the relationship, especially at a popular level, I would say, have contributed really to keep this relationship as warm and as friendly as it is today. So, it's not often as a foreign minister that I go to countries and I'm able really to look back from the time of independence at a relationship and genuinely tell the Indian community or tell the other stakeholders that a large part of it is actually due to the popular sentiment. And I can say this, that the popular sentiment is as strong it's strong in both countries. There is a kind of an X factor, you can say, in the relationship, which has actually been of great help to those who are building and trying to take it forward even today. Now, if one fast forwards and looks at the world today, I think all of you can see that the world today is very different from what it is 10 years, 20 years ago. And it will be very different 10 years from now from what it is today. Take India. We were 10 years ago the 10th largest economy in the world. Today we are the 5th largest. I think in a few years we will be the 3rd largest, hopefully beyond that as well. And it's not just the size of the economy. If one looks today at the state of development, the influence and impact on the world, and in many ways, the Indian community abroad is actually the best testimony that if I have to explain to someone what has been the impact of India on the world, one answer for me would be look at the Indian community across the world. They themselves are the impact. They themselves are the change. That the contribution they make, the contribution the influence that they have, that itself is a sign of changing times. So the official name of our relationship is Special and Privileged Strategic Partnership. So believe me, every word means something. That these are not lightly chosen words, that they have a message. That is a message which captures the history of the last 78 years, and it certainly reflects the sentiments and the hopes for the next many, many decades to come. Now, having said that, let me today talk about some recent developments in our ties. I think many of you either directly or indirectly are associated with the world of trade, of business, of investment. And you would have seen that there's been actually a very, very big expansion in our economic cooperation. 2 years ago, our trade with Russia was about $12 to $14 billion. Last year, it was $50 billion. This year, I would predict it will be even higher. Now, this is very good news, but it's also a challenge. It is a challenge because while the economic relationship has grown overall, we would like to see India's exports to Russia also grow, maybe not exactly equal, but at least in very large measure. And much of that responsibility is on all of you. That we as a government can give policy guidance, we can give encouragement, we can help with sorting out problems. But at the end of the day, business has to be done by business. And there are today possibilities for Indian exports to grow and overall India-Russia economic cooperation to grow. Now, why do I particularly say this to the community. Because from what I can see, and today I spent a large part of my morning with Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov, I feel today that the many people in Russia are not as familiar with what has changed in India. That if you look at who are the new players in India, what are the new businesses in India, where is it we can find the right fit, it could be in pharma, it could be in agriculture, it could be in something digital, in IT. Somewhere there are still gaps in, I would say, updating knowledge and understanding about India. So I would today actually, as Foreign Minister, make a request to the community that if you can actually make that extra effort, all of you live, amongst Russians, amidst Russians, you have friends, you have relationships, you have a great deal of trust from people with whom you work. I would like you today to use all that to grow what is a common goal, a common good of these two countries. That if, I have no doubt in my mind that 50 billion, within a matter of a few years can become 100 billion, if we all put our minds to it. If we can, and a lot of what India offers to the world today, if you look at where India is competitive today in the world, we are big exporters, we are regarded as a pharmacy of the world. You saw how we stepped forward, especially during the COVID, not just in vaccines, but in other medicines as well. If one looks at food products, at marine products, if you look even at agricultural trade, you look at auto parts, you look at engineering goods, there is a world out there. It is just that much of Russian business has not discovered it or not familiar with the changes, what is the new industry which has emerged in the last 20 years. So that would be my first message to you. My second message is actually in terms of larger societal interaction. As I said, the feelings of the people for each other has always been a very powerful driver of this relationship. So it's absolutely vital that we keep that strong and we keep that burning bright. And to do that, there is, a big sort of range of activities out there. It could be education, it could be tourism, it could be relationships of, different domains and civil society organizations with each other. But how do we not just do more business with each other, but how do we, beyond business, actually interact with each other? And I would say, for me, particularly tourism, encouraging more cultural exchange. What we saw our young friends doing just now. Culture has always been a very strong element in the it's a very traditional element. I mean, some of the finest Indologists in the world were actually from Russia. That if one look, whether you look at arts, you look at performing arts, you look at fine arts, you look at knowledge about India, there was a great tradition out there. We must keep that tradition going. We must find ways of making it contemporary. We must find ways of interesting young Russians today in India. And to me, the best way of interesting anybody is to first get them to visit. So when Prime Minister Modi travels out, he has one request which he always makes of the community. On his behalf, I make that request to you. Please ask 5 friends of yours. Not just ask, please make sure 5 friends of yours visit India. If each one of you in a community abroad can actually get 5 friends to India, believe me, you are making actually a very important contribution, because those 5 friends will certainly, in their own turn, get others close to them to also do the same. Now, my own foreign policy business is concerned, I just want to say, between us and Russia, things are very good, very strong. We are, we deal with each other very openly, very confidently. We are members of many organizations. BRICS is the most notable. Russia will have the presidency in the coming year. We are very committed to supporting their successful presidency. We ourselves have just completed the G20 presidency, which many of you know, and we got very strong cooperation from Russia to ensure that our chairship was very successful. So I can say broadly on the diplomatic side, I'm meeting Foreign Minister Lavrov tomorrow. But these are meetings I look forward to, because mostly these are very positive meetings where we talk about how we do more things together, and I'm sure that's exactly what will happen tomorrow as well. Russia is also, of course, a very special partner in a few areas. I think defense is particularly notable. I think all of you know that. Nuclear is another. Today, in the presence, in my presence and that of Deputy Prime Minister Manturo, we signed some very important agreements pertaining to the future units of the Kudankulam project, nuclear project. Space is again an area where we have a long history of working. And, typically defense, nuclear, and space, these are collaborations you only do with countries with whom you really have a high degree of trust. So it's not just that we do this cooperation, but that cooperation itself is reflective of the quality of the relationship. So having spoken about the relationship, let me also briefly say a few words about what is happening at home in India. I do want to, again, in this digital age, all of you are as connected as I am, So anybody who has access to a phone is instantaneously and immediately updated. So I know that. But as someone coming from India and someone working in the upper levels of the government, I do want to share with you today that the belief, really the mood in India, the feeling in India today is very optimistic, it is very strong. We have posted very good economic figures this year, especially the last 2 quarters, that today at a time when a large part of the world is struggling with growth, if you tell people that we are growing at 7.7%, you can see their eyes opening a little bit more. And it isn't again just the growth. I would say, for those of you who haven't been to India recently, or even if you go to India, many of us, I've lived abroad myself, so often when we go to India, we go meet our family, meet our friends, do our business and come back. But as someone who travels a lot in India and can see the change across India, there is really, I would say, without exaggeration, an enormous transformation which is taking place there. And it is a transformation which most of all is actually driven by an embrace of technology that you see in India. That today, even if you go to a street vendor, selling tea or bananas or coconut water, they are more likely to ask you for payment through a QR code and a phone. Then they are likely, if you give them a note, they will not give you change, because they say, that's your problem, not ours. So, if you look today at financial transactions, you look at actually programs the government has done, that the fact that we are very confident in a fairly short time that every house in India will be connected to piped water. Every home in India would be given an electricity connection. In fact, there will be more homes. That in the last decade, we have constructed 40 million homes, and 40 million homes at 5 people per family means 200 million people today have homes, which they did not have 10 years ago. So if you look at the scale of change today in India. It is enormous. And the mindset itself is today, you hear much more interest today in skilling and innovation and starting your own business. In fact, if one looks today at loans which are given out, mudra loans, or even we give loans to even people who do their own businesses, and these are loans without security. And we see, the 80-90% of the people who get these loans return it on time. So it's a very different India today that we are looking at. We are very confident next year. There are big decisions that we as a nation have to make. We are very confident that those decisions would be made for the good of the country, keeping in mind our long-term future. So if I were, in a sense, to sum up what is happening in India, I would say there is a much stronger shift really today, shift both in intent and in confidence towards a more Atmanirbhar Bharat. And by Bharat, really it is, a term I use for a country, for a society which is far more aware of its own traditions, culture and heritage, which is capable of taking very independent positions, which will actually really chart its own way in the politics of the world. So I do want to say, the motherland today, the sense, the feeling, the confidence levels are very high. But since I am here today in one of our really key partner countries, and one where, as I explained to you, the relationship has been extraordinarily important and extraordinarily consistent over many decades, I conclude with the hope that, with the expectation really, that the Indian community in every possible way would support the efforts of the embassy in building a stronger relationship. Once again, I thank you for taking the time to be here today.
As I mentioned, the Honorable Minister has very kindly agreed to take a few questions. So if there are some of you who would like to raise some things, sure, please, come. Somebody give her a mic. Is this Kumar? Okay, we'll start with Manish.
Good evening everybody. My name is Manish Kumar. I am in the category of who is living here more than 30 years, sir. Also, I'm a vice chairman of Moscow Chamber of Commerce. Why I'm telling, because some of the Russian perspective I will put in. As His Excellency already explained, and we all know that you have started your career when it was the Soviet Union, and you know much better this part of the world. We have seen your growth as a diplomat, as a seasoned diplomat, and the whole world and the many, as His Excellency told, that they all praise you like a, and we all countrymen are really proud of you, because India's foreign policy is a good hand. And if I request everybody to give you the standing ovation. Sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your concern. Now coming to my question, sir, because you have already explained so much about the, the relation of India, Russia, and all the perspective. If we ask you, because we live in this part of the world from many, many years, our families, our kids are here. So how would you see the India-Russia relationship down the time after 5 years, when the geopolitical situation worldwide changing very dynamically? And the situation where we see the Russia only as a strategic friends or privileged partner, or we can see on some more global arena. And immediately I'll use this chance to put the second question, which concerns to all our Indians here. Active discussion is going on in India for the dual citizenship. And regarding this, we would like to ask, now we are in a country which is hardly sanctioned. And if we Indians living here can have the two citizenship, it is so good for us because we don't lose the identity of SA because we want to be a proud Indian. We can do the business all over the world. Similarly, we can have the Russian. Thank you very much, sir.
We'll take another couple of questions and then, the minister will respond. Please, this lady here wanted to ask something. Please, here. Sudha.
Good evening.
Sudha, this lady here first, please. She's wanting here. Come, please.
Namaskaram, sir. I'm Sujata Rajgopal, a chartered accountant. Not about 30 years, but 20 odd years, 26 years. So, of course, I'd like to express my gratitude to you and our Honorable PM for making us proud, and especially as NRIs, where we know that the government is for us and will stand up for us. That's a great feeling of strength and support. So thank you for that. Now my question is, being a chartered accountant, we're talking of expanding trade between Russia and India. And the bottlenecks we know are payment systems. So is there something that you are strategizing to ease that? And are we looking at rupee ruble convertibility without dollar as a mechanism? Thank you.
One more. Yeah, Dr. Soma, please.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Somasundaram Subramanian, shortly Dr. Soma. I'm a cancer surgeon and a cancer survivor. I'm living here also for 34 years, studied in Soviet Ukraine, then did my medicine and all my training here. I just want to answer to one of the points you did mention, especially in the last more than 10 years. Every year, I'm bringing to India anything between 5 to 25 medical students, doctors, scientists on a regular basis. At any given time, one of the NGOs started by me supports, somebody is there in India even now. And so that is normal, and I'm doing my best for that. But I'll first bring the very first question I always ask, which is not a medical question. Honorable Ambassador knows that. From the point of view as government, what I want from India is to start direct flights between 10 big Indian cities to 10 big Russian cities. That is my question number one. It has to be changed. Without that, we cannot, most of those efforts which 5 of you great leaders have done, who are the superstars for me in the political arena in the world. Number 1 is President Putin. Number 2, Prime Minister Modi. Number 3, yourself. Number 4, Mr. Lavrov. And number 5, but he was the foremost, Evgeny Primakov, the senior, whom I knew personally. You people have changed the world a lot. But what all you did mention now, it will have 100 times more sense if we have this direct connectivity. 2 more points. One you did slightly touch today. That is, both India and Russia, we are nuclear superpowers today. But both our countries are not nuclear medicine superpowers. As a cancer specialist, I'm telling you, this country is producing top-notch materials which the nuclear industry of this country gives, which is even today being used by American and Canadian hospitals, which are not available in this country and in India. It is pathetic and unacceptable. I'll stop here. If you'll give me time, later I'll give you more questions.
So
thank you.
let me respond, and I will keep my answers short in the hope that you'll all keep your questions short after that. So first of all, India-Russia, where do we see it 10 years from now? Look, India and Russia are major powers, okay? What differentiates major powers from others is, even if there are ups and downs in their fortunes, they have that kind of spirit and that resilience and that capability to go through the tough times so that they keep going through, till they again, are able to, in a sense, fully express their capabilities. given the kind of picture, the analysis that I did for you of the last 78 years, I have no doubt that this relationship will get stronger. Because, I'd actually put it to anybody. Is there today actually, has there been in the last 70, 80 years any big problem between India and Russia? We may not always agree, but we have taken great care not to cause a problem for the other country. Now, not all countries do that, So I think if we continue to show that sensitivity and that wisdom, which we have done in the past, I'm very sure that this relationship will only grow from strength to strength. And I think even in the last few years, I see frankly, for example, a greater Russian focus on Asia. And I think that is partly one reason why our trade has grown so much in the last 2 years. So I'm very confident that that direction, and certainly I will endeavor to work in that direction where the relationship will keep going. On the dual citizenship, I get that question a lot. I understand why I get that question. It is a very complicated issue, particularly for a country like India, because there are many aspects. There are economic aspects, there are legal aspects, there are security aspects to this. About 20 years ago, we found a kind of a middle ground, okay? And the middle ground was the OCI card. For the moment, the middle ground is the solution which is the available solution. I know from the community, and I understand from the community why there is an interest, because there are more people abroad, their stakes in India, their investments in India, their relationships in India have grown. So it is a matter on which between, I would say, the NRI, PIO community and the government, I expect that conversation to continue. on the payment system, but before the payment system, you actually made one remark. The remark was that we stand up for Indians. You know why we stand up for Indians? For a very, one is a matter of pride. You cannot say I'm a rising power, I'm a big power, I'm influential country if you do not look after your people, because that is the test. It's like a family. If a family has to have respect, that family must learn to take care of all its members. If they get into trouble somewhere, if somebody falls behind, somebody stays apart, it is our duty to take care of that family. That kind of sentiment guides us. But it's also a fact today that because so many Indians and people of Indian origin work abroad, that responsibility is very much higher. That there are actually today 3.5 crore, 35 million Indians and people of Indian origin working abroad or living abroad. So there are very few countries who have that responsibility. So for us today, and half of them are actually still Indian passport holders. So we take that responsibility very, very seriously. Certainly I can tell you, Prime Minister himself, because in his own experience prior to becoming Prime Minister, he had in his travels a very strong connect with Indian community abroad. It is something from day one. If you remember, one of his first forays outside the country was actually to go and, in the USA, you had Madison Square Gardens. Every place that he has gone to, he has made it a point to interact with the diaspora, and that has been our consistent kind of approach. On trade settlements, what will happen? Common currencies are very difficult, but in fact, we're already seeing a situation where countries either have a agreement, between I have currency A, you have currency B, we do trade settlements in both or one currency. I can see a situation where, the reliance on the traditional currencies, it's not just dollar. A lot of countries, for example, used to do the trade settlement in Europe. So there will be more direct settlements because, for a variety of reasons, sometimes non-availability of other currencies, sometimes because for political or other purposes, use of third currencies become problematic. So once a system works, if, let us say, if we have settled on one or mutual currency for a few years, whether thereafter the world changes or not, our habits will continue. So I can see that actually growing. And certainly where India is concerned, we are today very keen to propagate UPI, to propagate RuPay, use of RuPay card. We would like Indian platforms, Indian mechanisms, Indian currency in a way for settlement to have greater international acceptance. So that is sort of part very much of India's growing stature in the world. On direct flights, today all airlines in India are privately owned, okay? Now, when they are privately owned, obviously they will respond to where there is demand. So the days when government directs airlines to go somewhere, those days are behind us, because that kind of direction to an airline actually is not good for an airline. I mean, any of you who are in business, you would not like to be directed by the government how to do business and with whom to do business and where to do business. So I would say today, if there is a strong demand, from the community, and I'm sure you're all very knowledgeable, influential people. You know how to make your demands felt at the right quarters. Do approach the airlines, because the airlines do respond. I've seen in the last 2 years a number of new destinations, which have come up between India and that particular country or that particular city. The Indian aviation carriers are themselves today in an expansion mode, which is quite different from how it is in much of the world. Most airlines are today trimming back. But we have actually the largest number of planes which are under order are from India. So I expect the possibilities to be there. I mean, I'm sure all of you would certainly, make your interest known. Certainly from the government side, I mean, we would, I would find it much more convenient to come on an Indian, carrier to Moscow or to other cities rather than, go through the Gulf or go through other options. On nuclear medicine, I note your point. As I said, what has happened is there are, the nuclear, for example, is today a very strong sector, okay, if I view it in terms of the volume of the business. But I think there are many aspects today which we tend to miss out because over the years we have not been as focused on each other as we could and we should be. I certainly hope, given your interest and your record, I think this is an area you yourself can make a difference, and I very much hope you will do so. One more.
Okay, Anjani, you can have the one question, that's it. And then
Good evening, sir. Sir, we are very thankful that you have given a very contentful address to the Indian community. I think it is the first address when you become the foreign minister to the Indian community in Russia. So we are very thankful to you. Sir, I'm Anjani Kumar Das, more than 30 years. I am also the president of Overseas Bihar Association and promoting Indian culture in Russia. Sir, I have one question which you have already touched upon. Due to the geopolitical situation, Indian businessmen and Russian businessmen are facing the local payments. As you are telling the RuPay and the Mir card or something, but still we all request you to please expedite this process because the tourism and other people are facing a lot of problem. When we go with the Russians, there is a problem in the payments, local payments. They have to take cash and all these things. So our sincere request to expedite this process so that the tourism and other process can be expedited. Thank you, Mr.
Good evening, sir. I'm Satya Punya into business of pharmaceuticals. I don't have a question. In fact, I just have a suggestion. What is the biggest barrier between Russia and India? It is the language barrier. And to my surprise, I see that in Indian schools, they are not teaching Russian anymore, Russian as a language. They're teaching French, Spanish, though I don't know how much connected we are with these languages. Russian? Well, I'm talking about private schools, and I tried hard to find
He has a point.
Yeah.
The Russian language teaching has decreased,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, in Indian school. That is a fact.
Yes.
And I say this because, I mean, from my own children's experience and my own memory. But
Same here, same here. I was looking for my son so that
Yeah.
he could learn Russian in schools in India, and I could hardly find any.
I can tell you some schools,
Yeah,
but
yeah. That's just a suggestion,
okay.
yeah, right?
Okay, one more from the gentleman there, and then we'll wrap it up there. Yeah, come, please.
Good evening, Your Excellency, and the esteemed members of the Indian community. So I'm Shivam, and I'm a trade lawyer turned into a businessman. I'm young, and I have a question that is there any progress on the free trade agreement between the India as well as Eurasian Economic Zone? Because since you have discussed
Sure,
about the...
Sure,
Yeah,
I'll give you an update. Okay, so on the payments, look, right now is a very unusual situation. Okay, we all know why it is an unusual situation. But the fact is, even in an unusual situation, we are trying today to find ways by which banks deal with each other. A lot of it is, frankly, lack of familiarity. That actually banks don't know enough banks on that side. People are unclear what is happening. And you know, you are from the business world. If you don't have a full picture or you don't have confidence, people hold back. So I would say today that actually those of you in the Indian community who do business, who have banking relationships, who know people at both ends, can, if nothing else, educate people about, you know, what are the risks, what are the banks, which are the, you know, good banks, which are the safe routes. I mean, I think you can make a contribution out here, but we have been, through various ways, have been trying to find solutions to the payments problem. The fact that today we are doing a trade of 50 billion will tell you that we have not been unsuccessful in that regard. But I would certainly recognize we can frankly do with a lot of help. That I would like, as I said, just as I would like the Indian business community to identify more export opportunities, I would also request you, please help Russian businesses to understand actually the whole payment side, and maybe on the Indian side also, because you know they will ask their main clients in Russia to actually help them to understand what is a very unusual situation right now. On the Russian language, I think it's a well taken point. We have actually, you know, for me, it's a general problem we face on foreign languages, that what is happening, India is growing. India's exposure to the world is growing. Number of Indians traveling to the world is growing. Indian businesses are growing. But our understanding, our training in foreign languages is not keeping pace with that. I see this as a drawback. And I would say, again, you know, if any of you in some way, my children many years ago, obviously, studied in a school where Russian was taught in Delhi. So if there are ways by which, through your own efforts, you can contribute to that in some way of strengthening teaching, especially of, you know, Russian language. And it is, I would to a Indian student, you know, anybody, for example, studying Sanskrit, it's a very logical language to take on as an additional language. I mean, most of us, at least who came here in the embassy, we kind of went through that language training for a year and a half, and we actually used the Sanskrit grammar as a reference point to learn Russian. But I would encourage you, and you know, again, if people feel there is business opportunities, there's a career, there will be more interest in learning Russian. And the last point on EU FTA. Yes, there was a, for a variety of reasons, I would say the negotiators did not meet. But today, when I met Deputy Prime Minister Manturov, we agreed that early next year, our negotiating teams will meet. So I expect by the end of January, hopefully, that the in-person negotiations will start.
Thank you for your address, Honorable Minister. May I kindly now request you and the Ambassador to join our community members for photos. Now, I will invite the members seated in row 1 and row 3 to come to the stage for a group picture with the Honorable Minister and the Ambassador. Our ushers are present to help you. Kindly return to your original seats after the photograph.